Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ColorByFeliks podcast. Today, we have an amazing guest with us, Andrea Ehrhardt. Thank you for being with us today, Andrea.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And I'm excited to hear about how we got connected through Ron with Brain Fitted.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you here. And before we kick off the episode, we just want to quickly remind you guys, if you are listening, be sure to leave a review, share this episode so that we can get Andrea some more exposure as well, and share this with people that you think will find value from learning more about art and art business, because I saw that your profile is you talk a lot about art business, right?
Yes. Yeah. I started this thing called the Artist Academy where I help coach artists to go from 0 to 100, how to make money with their art. So I love to talk about that subject, so we can get into all that.
Well,
Me
this is
too.
perfect
So
because
awesome.
Yeah, this is perfect because not many artists are actually focused on that, or either they're afraid to talk about it, but it's cool that you're doing art and you're also teaching that. So that Andrea is going to have some questions for you for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Also, we do this at the end as well, but I think we should incorporate at the beginning. Could you give us your handle so people can be following along with the episode?
Sure. Yeah. It's just Art by Andrea Ehrhardt. And if you just type in Art by Andrea, I'm going to pop up. I have paint all over my face and you'll know that that's the right one.
Cool. Yeah, so basically we got introduced to Andrea super randomly, but really cool. We were staying at a hotel in Leavenworth, Washington. It's called Post Hotel, and we ran into your friend in the hot tub.
Where all great business networking happens.
So we met, his name's Ron, right?
Yep.
Yeah. In the hot tub, and he was like, what do you guys do? Excuse me, by the way, we just got over COVID, so we're a little phlegmy over here. But he was like, what do you guys do? And we're like, yeah, we do art, and this is Felix's like handle. And he's like, oh, you got to check out my friend Andrea. We went to college together. She started doing art full time, and he was kind of like telling us about you. And I guess Felix looked you up, and I think maybe you guys were like already following each other or something. I'm not sure. Yeah.
I actually have seen your work through some art featuring pages. So I was like, wow, what a small world. That's crazy, that he tells us about you, and then all of a sudden I've actually seen your work online before. So so can you explain to the listeners what you do? I know you do mural paintings a lot, right? But you also play with, on canvas, and can you explain like what medium you use and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, props to Ron for being my hype girl and introducing us. Yeah. So I paint really big murals for businesses, and I mean, anything all the way from giant walls for companies to small stuff for nurseries here locally, like just a little bit of everything with a paintbrush. And I've been doing that for full time for almost 9 years now, which is crazy to think back.
Wow.
And just a little bit of my backstory. So I'm here in Springfield, Missouri, very small town, Midwest. Everybody waves at each other. It's a really great town. And the Bass Pro Shops headquarters is here. Are you guys familiar with the outdoor store?
I know what it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Springfield, Missouri, first of all, that's where my parents met in college. So that's super cool.
What? Yeah, it's not a very big town, so that shocks me. Yeah, so the Bass Pro Shops headquarters is here, and I right after I graduated from Missouri State by by studying painting and business and art education. I didn't really know what I was going to do, but it's funny because I'm using all of it now. So I graduated from there, and I just started painting people's windows and logos and just kind of doing a little bit of stuff around town. And then I got connected with the art department with Bass Pro Shops, and they picked me up. They said that they needed somebody to paint their logo all across the United States and Canada. And so I went on the road with them for over 2 years, just painting and learning and working next to some of the most amazing muralists I've ever seen, in this country. And they taught me a lot, and I learned a lot. And so now, I got a really fast paced into what being a working muralist is and the quality to live up to. And then now that's what I do. But I got a really lucky start in the beginning. I mean, I was definitely hustling and doing all the things. But yeah, that's a bit of backstory.
So how did you get that position? Did you go in there and like ask them if they had spots, or how did you go about that?
Networking. So before I was a full-time painter, I actually started my own promotional modeling company. So the girls who stand next to cars and promote the products. And that's actually how I met Ron, because he had a promotion company as well. And so we would work together with the local bars and do all this stuff. And I ended up helping a local guy promote his product. It was this product called cone chips. It was a snack chip. And I helped him get it into stores and on the news and all that. And he ended up working for Bass Pro. And so he was like, wait, you paint? Because I was also trying to do that on the side, just hustling, just trying to do everything. And so he recommended me when their logo artist quit. He was like, hey, I know this girl. She's a sign painter. And at the time I had painted probably 3 large logos ever. I was very new to it, but I walked in and everybody thought that I was this really experienced calligrapher, and I just didn't tell them otherwise. I was like, yeah, I can do letters. And I think a couple of them realized on the first day of the job, was like, oh, maybe she's not exactly who we thought. But I showed up every day with a smile and so eager to learn and ready to do the things and staying late. And like I said, I progressed really quickly because we worked about 60 hours a week minimum for 2 years.
Wow.
And so if you do anything for that amount of time and working around, people who are better than you, and just absorbing everything, my progress escalated quickly. So I painted all over in places like Vancouver, the Bass Pro Shops up there, all the way down to Florida, and everywhere in between.
That's so cool.
That's crazy. I never really painted on. I've been invited to, I remember, to do some mural paintings, but I was always like, I feel like that's such a different kind of perspective, and it's just so different for me. So you were painting back then, but were you afraid to jump into that space, or you're like, you know what, I'm gonna figure it out? Like, did you have that already in you, like to just kind of go with it and learn, and even if that you said you did like 3 sign paintings, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like you weren't like, you were just kind of, I'm gonna jump in and learn from there, right?
Yeah, so I'm a very naturally shy, introverted artist by heart. I was a very silent child, never did anything wrong, and I've slowly kind of blossomed. And art is one thing that helps me with that. But I have so much ambition that I'm like, oh, I'm so scared to do all of these things, but I'm just going to do it step by step. I remember my first mural that I painted was with Bass Pro, and because I had done sign work and logos up until then, and I did that for them. And then one day they were like, hey, we have this mural wall that we need painted, can you do it? I'm like, yes, like voice shaking, sure. And I remember going up to the wall, and it was about maybe a 10 by 8 foot wall, so nothing huge, but still substantially bigger than anything I'd ever done. And I remember looking at it like, where the heck do I even start? So I went over and I just grabbed one of the younger painters. I was like, hey, so what colors would you use if you would do this? And like, what kind of, and they just like handed me a really big brush and a roller. They're like, use this roller because that's going to save you a lot of time. I was like, okay, how do I use that roller? What do you mean? And I just asked a lot of questions, but yes, I was so scared. And that scared feeling of just not knowing what to do and just not knowing where to even start and not really knowing who exactly to look to. And nobody really, I mean, they gave me tips, and I loved, having other artists around me as an example, but nobody was like physically showing me how to paint. And it was just really hard. And so that's the reason I still have that scared mentality in the back of my mind. That's the reason why I teach people how to paint murals and show them exactly how to do it. Like we just had a mural meetup here in Missouri this past weekend where artists come in from all over, and I physically show them how to do their first mural. That way I'm there as a backup for them, as like a safety net, and that way they can go show pictures that they can do it and they can go do the next one on their own.
That's really cool. So I think that even though you're still scared and you still like look back on that with fear, I think that what's really cool in that, I've already literally written down 4 lessons from what you already said. And I think that like one of the cool ones, because I'm always on the lookout for like tips for like young artists, because I think that's so much of our audience. And I think the really cool thing in what you said there was that you just like, even though you felt that fear, you just jumped in anyway and took the opportunity. Because I think that a lot of people maybe have had opportunities to do things and they let their fear of not having enough experience or something like that keep them from just jumping into it. And I think that that's really cool that you just did it anyway. And you're like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to learn. I'm going to ask people on the job. And like, I don't know. I just think that that's great. And then real quick, sorry, because I know we're just going to move past it. Like, I think that this could really help people listening. I think number one, what I learned from what you just said is create your own opportunity to start. Like when you had the thing going with the modeling, and like, that's how you got discovered. If it weren't for that, you know, you wouldn't have gotten maybe discovered by Bass Pro Shops. And I think that to anyone listening, like whether that's starting your own local art show or something like that, like do something yourself when nobody's giving you opportunities yet that could let people discover you, you know, whether that's just having a good social media presence or whatever. And then number 2 is when they discover you, roll with the opportunity. Cause I think that's so cool. Like what you did is like, yeah, you didn't have all the skills yet. Yeah, you hadn't done murals before, but like you just jumped in and you're like, I'm going to capitalize on this opportunity, because anyone can get an opportunity. But if you don't roll with it, then no one remembers your name or you never make anything of it. Like there's so many, I think of musicians, there's so many that have a big hype and then a year later it's not there because they just weren't ready to work hard and capitalize on that opportunity. And so anyway, that's all I wanted to say, is that I think it's cool that you just jumped in on the mural and that you're using that to teach others now too. But the fact that, you know, you felt that fear anyway. And so I guess, sorry to keep it, not dead end it and keep it wide open, I guess I would just ask you, like, how does that fear, because you said that you still think back on that and then that like motivates you, would you say that's like a positive thing, like that because clearly it's led you to teach other people and stuff, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it makes me appreciate nowadays, because I don't know when it happened in the last 8 years, but I went from scared just about every day or every other day on the job for a while. I'm talking like weeks, months. And so that's why it was so imprinted in my brain, because I would show up and I mean, I would paint a tree scene and then an underwater scene, and then it was just something new all the time. And so you're learning how to paint that, and not only paint that, but at a large scale. And also we were under pressure because the store was opening, and so the walls would be built, we would paint them, and then the store would open. So we had that date, so that we worked so much. So you not only was I under pressure to be good, but to be fast as well. And so I mean, it was just an amazing learning experience, but it really imprinted in my mind, just like from struggling for so long. Like it gives me a lot of empathy nowadays for whenever I have students with me. I know exactly how they're feeling because I've been there, and not all that long ago. And I'm not sure when exactly it happened. Sometime, I would say about 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I'm just not scared to paint anything anymore. And it's such a great feeling knowing that even if I haven't painted maybe that specific thing yet, I can just walk up to it and figure it out. And I just emphasize to a lot of people in the beginning, everything is hard. Everything, you're not going to know how to paint a lot of things, and most things are going to suck. But if you paint one tree and then you paint 10, the 10th tree is going to go so much faster, and it's going to be so much better than the first one. Right. So, yeah.
So, so you teach about you teach other people how to make murals, and is that separate from like art business?
It's kind of all in one. So I teach a little bit of everything of how I make money with art. I'm an open book. So if I make money with prints during the holidays, I have a course on that. And it's all included in the Artist Academy membership. So I focus on murals because that's my big money maker. Like murals have really big price tags, and that allows me to work like this year I'm having a baby in November. And so I'm really stepping back and I'm working probably half the year and I'm still making six figures because of murals. So I push murals a lot because they just have a bigger price tag and it's really just using a bigger brush. But yeah, it's all included in the Artist Academy membership because I think you can teach somebody how to paint, but then there are also a lot of artists out there who have a really good set of skills but have no idea how to market themselves. So if you teach someone to paint, like, hey, this is how you make a really good video and turn it into a reel that gets it out there. Oh, also, this is how you take a flyer around your local town and get window jobs, like window painting jobs around the holidays, which leads to bigger murals. And so there's just so many ways to market yourself, whether it's knocking on doors or screaming on social media, showing people what you can do. It all works together.
So when did you start posting on social media with your art? Like what led to that?
So way back in the day when I did my promotional modeling, that job taught me how to promote without even really thinking about it. Just if you want to get a product out there, you have to post a photo online. And so that's how I started. And so when I started doing art, it just kind of came naturally. I'd already been doing photos and some video, and I really started working on my Instagram heavily and being really intentional with it about 5 years ago. And I just hit 100,000 followers, which is awesome.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And so, but really the biggest growth has been with reels lately. Have you guys seen that?
Mm-hmm.
As well?
For sure.
Okay.
So you're mainly on Instagram. Are you on Facebook, TikTok, other YouTube? Are you using YouTube at all?
YouTube is the one thing that I'm constantly in the back of my brain, like, if I used YouTube, it would like that. That's been on my to-do list for several years. No, I'll post a couple things to YouTube, but I'm not really on that. I have about 400,000 followers on TikTok, and then I use Facebook as well. Facebook is really great for local jobs. I get a lot of local stuff there. And then most of it comes from Instagram though.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so interesting. So what made you want to get into the art business? And were you like, okay, I'm doing this full time and I want to be able to show other artists how to do this, and make a living out of this? And what made you, what gave you that push to do this thing?
Really?
With art?
There was I went to Missouri State for painting, and when you're around a lot of other artists, okay, from my experience, when I'm around a lot of other artists, we all have different mindsets. And there was the artists who love the art history part of it and the meanings behind the paintings, and I'm over here like, I just really want to make money so I can travel the world with art, and I want to love my job. And I just felt almost less than, to be completely honest, because I was like, I don't feel like a full artist. I didn't feel like I was weird enough. I didn't, or unique enough. I didn't have that
artsy enough.
Yes, artsy enough. I was like, I have a business brain, and I felt bad about it for a while. And then, I started to build my business, and then other artists just kept asking me questions like, what kind of paint are you using, or how are you getting jobs, like what's going on? And so I started giving little tips. And so through people asking me, I was like, oh wait, maybe I could help other artists do this. And it actually made sense. And as soon as I decided to start the Artist Academy about 3.5 years ago, I really felt like I found what I'm supposed to be doing, because my brain is very much business and art equally, maybe even a little bit more on the business side of it. And so now I feel like I'm doing what I am meant to be doing by teaching other artists. And we've helped many artists go through and, make a living with their art. And there's one local artist here, Samantha Cox. She just started 2 years ago, and this year she's going to hit six figures with doing murals.
Wow.
So
wow,
that's amazing.
I think what's so cool about that, of your story, is that, like you said, there's all these ideas floating around about what an artist should be or what a business person should be. And I think that, I personally believe there are certain things in life that are absolutes, right? There are certain things that I would say are good and evil and all that. But like, I think that the majority of life, there's no answers. It's wide open. There's no right or wrong. It's literally like whatever you want to define it, that's what it is. And those old definitions that we're getting just come from other people, and are always subject to change. And it just takes a while for it to change, because people don't realize that they have the freedom to change it. But it's like, you can define yourself as anything that you want. I think there are artists out there who do really radical things like paint with their blood and stuff like that, you know, and never sell a single painting because they just are that into the expression of it. And then there's people who are mostly business, and there's everything in between. I think that it's like you said, you know, you get to define it. I mean, do you think that if you had to put like a timeline on it, because it seems like maybe like through experimenting and trying different things, you were able to find where you are now, which makes you feel really fulfilled. Like, if you had to say like how long that took you, like how many years of like working and experimenting did it take you to kind of find that place where you feel really comfortable and like you're really on your purpose?
Oh gosh. So college, I mean, if you count going through college for 4 years, and then at post college, I was really learning the craft, which I think is the first step. Like I couldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, 6 years ago, when I wasn't an experienced muralist yet. It doesn't make sense to teach when you feel like you don't have a really good handle on it. So for 4 years in college, just kind of learning the basics. And then I'd say about 2-3 years after that, learning murals and just doing murals and calligraphy. So maybe 7 years. And I was like, oh, wait, I think I'm ready. Because I think that's the part of it. When I went to college, I have a minor in business and a painting degree. And then I did some art education too. And it's so funny because I went down all these different roads and I was like, what the heck am I going to do with a degree in coloring? Like, what is this? And
Right.
I was just going with my interests, and they all kind of worked out in a way that I would have never thought. But yeah, it took about 7 years of just building that up.
Awesome. That's really cool, because I think like I totally identify with that feeling of like, I'm chasing all these different interests and I have no idea how they're going to come together. But I feel like your life is a great example of how it does come together, because it's like, no matter what, you're learning something. Like, even if, say, for example, I don't know, like you went into college to be, or say, for example, you took sculpting lessons and then somewhere down the line, you ended up becoming a painter. It's like, I don't think that's wasted time. Do you, because you're still learning life lessons through that, like either whether it's just perseverance or like how to have an aesthetic eye. It's like, it doesn't have to line up exactly. Like you're gonna, it's giving you some kind of skill. So it's like, I think people get really wound around the axle about like, oh no, am I studying the thing that I'm going to use to be my ultimate profession? Am I doing the exact thing I need to be doing right now? And that can create so much anxiety. But it's like, maybe just letting go and saying, hey, I'm getting some skills, some universal skills from this,
Yeah. And it's so funny that you mentioned sculpture, because I took one sculpture class in college and I was like, this is stupid, I want to paint. And just this past year, I've been taking a little bit of a break, from murals, and stepping back a little bit to do just experiment and have fun with art, because that's important too, right? Not just painting for money. And I've just gotten into doing those plaster mural sculptures. So like on the wall, you mold plaster on the wall to be a 3D mural, and I'm actually having a really good time with it. So it's not just one specific niche that you can get into. I do all different things, logos,
right.
exterior murals. Now I'm adding in the sculpture element, and I think it just makes you versatile.
Yeah. I don't believe that like when you're in the womb that God programs you and says, this person will be a sculptor using whatever, or this person will be an acrylic painter. Like acrylics didn't even exist 1,000 years ago. Like that stuff is not innate. I think what's innate is just the artistic impulse. And then it's like you said, you can just jump to another medium or whatever and still bring that artistic impulse to it. And
for sure.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, wait. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's so interesting to hear, like your story, because very much like that energy and that feeling of how I even started beginning experimenting and trying and getting my art out there, not knowing what's going to happen, putting at coffee shops and stuff like that. And like, you have that kind of passion, for art. And I think that people love passion. When they see that you have some sort of passion, and it could be anything, people will support that, and we just need to pass over that fear and step into that, and I see that you're doing that, and that's so cool to see. It's very encouraging.
Thank you. Yeah, I get compliments more often than I would And then I thought I would about people will follow me and they'll comment on my videos. They're like, you just look like you're having so much fun with it. I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad it looks like that because I am most days. I mean, there are some days where it's hot out and you're painting and it's just, yeah, I don't want to paint rocks today, but for the majority, it's pretty fun.
Yeah. And you mentioned getting back in touch with like what you want to paint and things like that. So because you have such a history doing these corporate jobs, which I think is awesome, like that, I imagine that took much of your time. But if a client just said like, paint whatever you want on this mural, what would you paint?
Oh my gosh, lots of pink and glitter stuff, and I'd put a little bit of plaster mural sculpture stuff in it right now. Oh my goodness, I'm getting into more of the surrealist stuff here lately. There's some of the surrealist artists that I've been looking at here recently. I think it's just something with imagination, whether it's having a cloud with penguins on it or something, and some stuff like that.
I feel like Felix, you've been experimenting a little bit with that kind of stuff too, because I feel like what makes things surreal versus like fantastical is that like you get that surreal feeling, in my opinion, from having something in it that's like anchored to real life, but out of place or whatever. Right. Yeah. And I feel like some of the stuff that you've done recently, it's like, oh, I recognize a landscape, but then the closer I look, I see these weird little patterns in it and stuff like that.
I think that's the fun part about like for a creator, an artist, and Andrea, you're doing that too. I noticed with your clouds, and I actually seen some of your work on there, and I think that's cool. I think that's the point of being, an artist and creator, is to challenge yourself to kind of add something from your perspective. That somebody, it doesn't matter. There's no rules, there's no like limitations. You could use any colors, you could use whatever you want. I always thought, like when I first started, painting, that it has to look exactly or almost close to the picture, or if I'm an artist, I have to make it look realistic, whatever I'm painting, But like years go on, I realized, no, like it's more fun to, why don't I just combine both and play with both? It's kind of like Legos in a way, you just kind of move things around, and then after a month you might be different in some sort of different medium, and then you play with that a little bit, and then all those experiences, like we talked about, like you get those experiences and you put them all together and something comes out of it, in the future, and you just don't know what's coming. I still don't know like where this is going to lead, and I'm sure you, Andrea, do you have a plan? Do you have a vision? Do you have a goal where you want your art to end up? Or you just kind of like, I don't know, I love doing this, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm ready for it? Are you like that? Or do you have like a goal to where you want your art to end up?
Recently, I feel like I've been hustling for so long and just trying all these new things and just having fun with it, and building up this body of work where I feel like here recently I've hit this almost plateau of just being okay with things. And, I have mural work coming in, and I'm doing canvas projects, and I'm like, this is just a really good spot to sit and settle for a little bit, because I'm getting ready to be a first-time mom and this fall. And so really I like having hustled for so long and getting my business up to a point where it's steady now allows me to have my mind into learning all these new baby things. And it's so that's where I'm at with that right now. But I'm sure next year or the next, I'm going to be like, okay, let's do this other big project and let's build the academy and let's do another one. But for right now, I think I finally hit this point of building and building and building, and then just being good with it. What about where it's at? But to your point of like like creating things that are more unique and all of that. So when I painted for Bass Pro Shops, everything was very realistic and very just very standardized. And so that's the mode that I was brought into in this art world. And when I started not working for them as much and doing my own thing, it was really hard for me to break away from that stereotypical must paint realism as an artist to be taken seriously mentality. And I remember I painted a rainbow zebra one day, and I painted it with first I chickened out and I painted a normal zebra and I posted it. Everybody loved it because that's what they were used to getting from me, all the wildlife stuff. And then I was like, I really want to paint this thing with rainbow stripes like the gum back in the day. And so then I did it, and I was sweating, like pressing that post button. I was like, okay, if it doesn't work out, I can just delete it. And everybody loved it just as much as the other one, if not more. So I was like, oh, I was just so scared as I found my style here recently in the last few years, like really have found my surrealist, fun pink glitter style, that I was so scared that I wouldn't be taken seriously as an artist. And that's so not true, because there's some very unique artists out there. And I think the more unique you are, the more we stand out.
Yeah, that's so true.
Totally.
Yeah,
I think that's fertile ground too, is like stuff that maybe like I find in my art, like something that maybe somebody would consider not serious or whatever, or not elevated enough, like the idea of pink and glitter, or like even right now, like the idea of like classic rock puts a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. But I think that actually means that it's the most fertile ground for experimentation, and like you can always take it in some new direction that's unique to you. And like, I don't know, I just think that, yeah, if you're only doing what's considered currently like whatever, cool or aesthetic or whatever, then you're not listening to yourself.
For sure. Yeah, I did this one painting last year, and I was like, I have this idea in my head, and it's like, I've now realized that if I think it's a little too out of the box and a little too weird, it's probably going to be one of my best ones. I was like, okay, I just want to do this big cloud, and I did drops of rain glitter. So I just put different levels of glitter coming down from the cloud, and that has been my best-selling print. It took me, I don't know, 3 or 4 hours to make this one painting, but people love it. And I loved creating it too. So I found going forward, if I'm not excited about the idea that I'm about to put on canvas to put out there and possibly make prints out of it, then I don't know that anybody else is going to be that excited. So when I come back to the drawing board, I don't always have things perfectly set out to exactly what I'm going to do, but I just need to be excited about the idea. And so that's where I'm at right now, is just figuring out ideas that really get me going.
Right.
Do you sketch before you start painting? Do you sketch your ideas, and how does your process go?
Yeah, sometimes I typically, when I'm looking for ideas, I'll go to Pinterest and I'll just look at all the weird stuff. Or I'm really into Daniel Merriam here recently. He's like a surrealist dreamscape artist, and so I'll take little things from other people and make it my own, and use maybe some reference photos that I have as well. We went to Antarctica for our honeymoon a couple years ago, so I had a bunch of penguins.
Whoa.
Yeah, I had a bunch of reference photos of penguins, and as we came back, my husband was like, yeah, paint some penguins. And I'm like, I just don't want to paint them normally. Like they're just, and so I was like, I'm just going to paint this big cloud and make it pink. And I'm going to put little penguins on the cloud. How did they get there? I don't know. But that was another one that when I was pressing the post button, I was like, oh, people are going to think I'm really weird for this. But that one has also been one of my best selling prints.
That's
great.
Cool. How often do you like travel for your art? And you said that that's like what you wanted to do. And so are you doing it?
So I started out like wanting to travel the world, right? And I've been to like all the continents and whatnot, and I've had a great time. And so from traveling so much for work through Bass Pro Shops and doing other jobs, I have recently come to the conclusion that I like to travel for work, but really like maybe 10% of the year. So really, it's so great to sleep in my own bed at night. I've created a home here. We have a cat, and like all the things. And so I like to create opportunities every once in a while, but working at home is pretty great too.
That's cool. And I wanted to go back real quick to what you said about Pinterest and kind of taking a little bit from here and there. I think that is so cool, is like that you embrace
stealing
that.
like an artist.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Austin, hit us up. We want to interview you. But the thing is that like, I think that because I actually saw somebody on, so I do like fashion type content on TikTok. And then I saw somebody else who's like, I think they've been doing this for a while, and they're actually like, they design their own clothes and stuff. But they were saying, they made this one that kind of got a lot of traction that was saying like Pinterest is evil, or like mood boards are evil, right? And a lot of people were like agreeing and stuff. And I was just like, you know what? I actually vehemently disagree with this. And I'm like, this person might be a working designer and stuff, but I think that I think they haven't leaned far enough into the perspective of, hey, we're already all stealing anyway. Like I think that we don't have ownership of our ideas. Even like our best ideas we don't have the level of ownership that we think we do over them, And I think that like realizing that and maybe like letting go a little bit and saying, hey, someone else is going to be influenced by my art and that's okay. It's like,
Yeah.
and with or without Pinterest, I think people are going to do that, And
Yeah. There's such a weird line between copying and being inspired by, right? And
right.
a lot of students that I have come in, especially, they're like, what if I put my art online and someone steals my idea? I'm like, great, that means you have a great idea. Because I did this one mural here locally that really kickstarted my local street art name here in Springfield, and I started getting a lot of jobs from it. I painted back in the day when wings weren't really like completely everywhere. I painted a set of monarch butterfly wings downtown. It was our first set of wings here around anywhere, and one of our first street art pieces too. And so to get permission to do that and all that, it was quite a bit, but I painted them, and people have taken like, that is like, you're not a sorority girl in Springfield if you have not gotten your picture taken with the butterfly. So it's all over Pinterest, it's everywhere. And if I do a quick Google search, it's probably been copied about 10 times that I can find easily. And at first I would get really mad about it. I'd be like, oh, they stole my idea, oh my goodness. But if you really come and think about it, I am so chill about being copied nowadays that I like, who cares? Because it like, I'm not going to go to some little town that and paint another set of these. Like, another artist saw them, was inspired by them, and made their own version that's very, very similar but slightly different. And they're getting work just like I am in Springfield. They're getting work in their small town from doing something just like I did. And so there's I think, like, people can wave the copyright flag, and like, you could always send a letter or whatnot, but I just have a view of, like, I get copied so much that who cares? Like, nobody's really like benefiting from it as much as I am.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think it's like, for sure, you bring up a good point, is that there are certain instances where, like, say somebody who had like a savvy like corporation behind them or something stole your idea and then was profiting off of it, like, that would be the time to take legal action. But it's like, if it's just some kid and they're making a few bucks off it, and like everyone still knows that it was you that originated it, like, I think that
and the copies, like, aren't really as good as the original anyway. So it's like, yeah, you tried.
Good point.
Yeah, and it happened to us many times. And it's like, if you're gonna put your art online, you kind of have to understand that's gonna happen no matter what. Wherever you put it, someone out there is gonna take your idea and redo it or try it, and that's okay. You learn to let it go, and over time there's bigger problems, but in the beginning, maybe that's more of like a bigger question. But as time goes on, you realize, that's actually flattering. And I feel like I'm onto something, like you said, like, that means you're onto something good, and you just work around your idea, and you are your unique person, and no one's going to create what you're going to create in the end. So it doesn't affect anything, much.
Yeah. I feel like the answer is just to keep creating more and more, because you have that secret sauce, like you said, Felix. It's like, and people are going to realize you just saturate the market with your own stuff, and people are going to realize that no one else has the same touch that you do.
It's actually interesting, because like, I was like, there was times where I felt like, okay, I see more people are copying in this style. I'm like, it makes me want to challenge to create something with the style, but take it a step further, so it's almost challenging me to not sit still or be comfortable, in a way, because it makes me want to push myself a little more, the more people actually copy, in a way. So I'm like, I need to create something even more, like maybe a new series, and in a way, if you look at it in a positive way, it could be really good for you.
That's a really interesting point. Yeah. It's like,
sure.
So what, you guys want to copy me? I'm on to the next thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm painting pretty pink clouds by now. Like,
Yeah.
but butterflies are the thing of the past.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've noticed this, like with students that come through my academy, like they see something that's working, which is my business model, and so a lot of people will copy it in a way, and it ends up working for them because a lot of people in their area don't even know who I am, so it doesn't matter, and it's working for them. But like some artists will even like dress the same way as I do, and then after a while they're like, oh wait, this is more my style. But I think that's just how our brains go, like, oh, you're doing something that's working, let me try something like that, and then you kind of find your own.
Right. That is interesting. Yeah. And I think that that's how culture moves in general, because even if you think about, like, for example, like streamers who play video games, right? Like, I don't watch a whole lot of that stuff, but I can already tell a lot of them like dress and talk the same. And it's not that there's some universal law about like, this is what works best as a streamer. It's just one person had some success, whether it's like Ninja or whatever. I don't even know that world, but like one person had some success doing one thing. And then so many people like copy that, and that's okay. It's just going to happen. And it's like, but I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, it's like, I don't think there's anything written in stone about who you are or who you have to be or anything like that. Like that proves it. You know what I mean? Almost the fact that these cultures are just shaped by a lot of people going along with the flow just proves that there's no rules. And anytime you want to do something new, you just go for it, or anything that seems weird, because today's weird is tomorrow's normal,
Yeah. Like NFTs, are you guys into those yet? Speaking of weird.
Not me, but I don't know.
We haven't gotten into it yet, but we have like talked to people about it and stuff. Are you working on something?
I did one collection back in March and they sold out. And so I've just been, I'm like, we're about to maybe do another one. But yeah, it's just, speaking of new weird ways to go, like there's always something new in the art world and some other direction.
Where did you like list yours?
OpenSea.
Okay.
Yeah, and most my Twitter isn't really crazy yet. Like I actually just started a Twitter back in February, and so, but I sold a lot of them from Instagram and other places. So there are people that are into that kind of a thing, or there's people that are into plaster sculptures or digital art, or there's so many ways to go with this art world. Or you could paint giant murals, because I know murals seem like really big and intimidating, but it's really just using a bigger brush. And when I'm painting a mural, it's very it's very loose. So if you walk up to one of my murals, it's like, oh, this is all she did. But when you step back, that's when you're like, oh, I get it. It all makes sense.
Interesting. Yeah, I found that scale is like such an interesting way to experiment with an artistic approach, because some people, like, I've seen that trend of like mini canvases and stuff. And then the texture is much more visible. Like, no, I want to hear you go off on those.
It's hard to, like, painting little. The idea of painting little to me sounds terrible. It makes my skin crawl a little bit, because I prefer big. Even in college, I painted on like 3x4 foot canvases. I just like to paint really big, and a lot of times at our mural meetups, we've had a lot of them everywhere, and we're getting ready to have another one. And one of the main things when people come and I put a big brush in their hand for the first time, they'll slowly just kind of put it down and pick up their small brush that they're used to and do that. And I'll come around and I'll take that brush out of their hand. I'm like, no, like this one. And they're like, oh God, because you're so used to using the small brushes at painting canvases. And
that's really interesting. Yeah, because you almost have to use your imagination when you're going so big, right? Because when you're standing right in front of it, so you have to be, as you're doing that, you have to be picturing what the large scale from afar is going to look like, because you don't get to paint with a 30-foot brush, from the other side of the street.
That's true.
Do you use how does the, like, so how do you work when you're creating a mural? Do you use like I've seen people use projectors, to outline to make it easier?
Sure.
Is that, you have to do that? Is that part of the process, or?
Yeah, it depends on what it is. There's some things that it gives me a little bit more creative freedom that I can go into. And so I'll send, when a customer comes to me and they're like, hey, I want a mural on my 10 by 10 foot wall, I'll be like, okay, great. Like, and so they'll give me a little bit of suggestions on what to do. I'll send them a couple mock-ups and I do those mock-ups on Procreate with the iPad. Love that thing. And so I'll send them some really basic sketches, and then I'll get a little bit more detail but really I again, I don't like to work small. So even on the Procreate on the iPad, I'm like, okay, this is about what it's going to look like, but it'll look a lot better on the wall. And so they just trust me. And I think I've built up a body of work to now where they're like, okay, like they can more have that trust. And so then I'll project it onto the wall. I'll have a really loose sketch with chalk. And that way it just gives me like, okay, the head of the animal goes here and the eyes are there. And then we have this firework behind them. So I'll do some lines, but really it's mostly making it up on the wall. And so that's the progress. And I'll do a time lapse as I'm creating and create video the whole time. And video is really the thing that has helped me to grow on social media so quickly and get more jobs. A lot of people, when I first started doing murals here locally, especially, I just set up a time lapse and would post it to Facebook. And that changed my art business because people then would look forward to it. Was like back in the day when you could set up a 1-minute time lapse and people would watch the whole thing. That is not how it is. I remember my dad back in the day was like, can you speed that up a little bit? I was like, Dad, you don't want to watch my every move. So nowadays I'll speed it up to about a 10-second reel with a cute ending and all of that. But yeah, just posting videos, because actually local businesses, when I go to paint for them, they'll be like, hey, can you do one of those video things so that we can post it on our social media and our LinkedIn and we'll tag you? And I'm like, yes, please. So I'll send that video to them and it's double the promotion. I'll be tagging them in my stories and they'll be sharing my stuff back. And so doing that dual promotion with other people is a good way to just get the word out as well. Because once I started getting jobs from businesses here locally, business people know other business people, I realized. And so if I can get them to share my stuff, and they're excited because they just have a brand new wall painted that they spent thousands of dollars on, and that looks really cool because they were with me in the process of designing. They want to share that too, and so they tag me, their friends see that, and then it's just off to the races.
Right.
So how long does a mural typically take you?
It depends, but I don't have a lot of patience. So I mean, I'd say I could probably do a small kids room mural in a day or a half a day. And then, or I'll go, let's see, we just did one up in Branson, which is a local tourist destination. And that one would probably take about 4 days. And the wall was about 8 foot high by about 38 foot long. But it just kind of depends on what people want, because a lot of times people say, hey, I only have a budget of $2,000. What can you do with that? And like, okay, we can make something really cool, but it's just not going to be very detailed. So it's not going to be realism, but we're going to have some outlines of some stuff. We're going to point to your products or whatever they want. And I'll work with them because I've noticed to get the really big jobs from the really big, technically you got to get out of small town Springfield, but I can still get a job done pretty quickly here on a smaller budget and still make it worth my while.
That's cool. And I wanted to real quick jump back to what you were saying about the cross promotion, because I had an idea for those of you who are starting as artists, there's the conventional wisdom of go around your local businesses and get them to sell your art, like coffee shops or restaurants or whatever. But you could add another layer of that based on what Andrea just said, is when you're going to those coffee shops and stuff, film some content there of you actually hanging the paintings, hanging out with the employees, ordering a coffee, whatever stuff that they can use as well as you. And then, like you were saying, Andrea, they'll share that. Other businesses locally will see that and want to get in on the action. Everyone wants to be associated with art and community and all that fun stuff. So it's that's another layer you could do to the conventional approach of art promotion, of in-person art promotion,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because it's just because we have the internet is great, and I think the internet can really accelerate you, but as you've shown with your career, still being a local mainstay and the local go-to person is very valuable, and having those real life relationships.
Yeah, for sure. Just creating that local, be the go-to artist reputation here locally. And I started out by doing things for free when I painted for Bass Pro for a while, and then with construction goes in waves. So we were busy building things, and then they just took a little bit of a break. And I was like, okay, I'm not painting for Bass Pro. I'm not super busy anymore. I have to build my own marketing here locally and spread my marketing wings. So I just did a bunch of photo op street art around town because Springfield didn't have a whole lot of that got me going. And then I started charging more and more and more, and just building it up from there to where now I have two $15,000 jobs before I have this baby that I have to do. And that's a bigger size job for this town. And in both of them, I was talking to them and they're like, yeah, you were the go-to person. You were the one that, we asked 5 people and 4 of them said you. So, and it takes time. And I know a lot of new artists are like, oh, great. That's 7 years is a long time or whatnot, but it's just, you start small and you'll be so glad you did it in a few years from now. Like I said, I have a couple students that are going to hit that $100,000 mark in just a couple years.
Wow. That's
awesome.
Exciting. Really exciting.
Yeah.
And so how long did it take you to get to that point? It took you 7 years too?
So I went to college, and then I was about a year out of college where I was just kind of hustling around town. And then I got that lucky break to get introduced to Bass Pro Shops. And then I was making right at 100,000, but I was working so much. We worked 60 to 70 hour weeks. And so so I had that for a couple years. And then when I wasn't as busy for them, I think it took about another year for me to go and, okay, I have to build up my own brand now and not just have one customer. And so I hustled. I did start over. Basically, I did a lot of stuff for free, hustled. And it took about maybe a little bit over a year to get back to that. And now it's just been up and up and up.
That's cool.
That's exciting.
And I would say again that, like, even, you calling it your lucky break, I would argue that maybe, like, I think something else would have come along even if Bass Pro Shops hadn't noticed you, because you had made yourself known through, like you said, just hustling and like doing stuff for free or just getting well known, whether that's locally or online. It's like, I think you created that opportunity for yourself. If you hadn't done that legwork, they never would have known to find you,
Yeah, for sure. Cause I could have easily, taken a job at a bank and had that steady income coming in and not taken that chance on myself. And I know that it's really scary. I interview a lot of artists on my podcast about the process of quitting their day job, because that is really scary. Quitting your day job and not having that, constant revenue coming in every week and betting on yourself is, it was scary back in the day. But again, then I didn't have a family, and I kept my expenses really low for a while. And I went backpacking through Europe and whatnot, but it was budget backpacking. We stayed in hostels, we did the stuff. And nowadays it's like, it doesn't have to be quite that, and we can go on vacations, but it's just a slow growth.
That's
awesome.
Really cool.
So what would you say, what would you recommend right now, to someone who is starting out, or maybe are in the art journey, just started out, maybe they're in a year already doing it, but they're not seeing any kind of progression, or because I'm sure you had times where you're like, man, this is tough, you're like, is this gonna work? I'm sure you had those. I've had those many times in the beginning, especially. What would you recommend, or what would you say to the young artists right now starting out?
Yeah. So what I've noticed, and I am biased, I will start that out. I am biased because I am a muralist. What I've noticed from students coming into my academy is the sooner they really wrap their minds around, okay, murals, you can make the big money with murals. As soon as they really are like, okay, I'm going to learn how to paint big. I'm going to go down that route. And I teach them, so the holidays are coming up. One of the things that you can do if you're interested in painting large scale, or really just painting for other people in general, is go around, take a flyer, and go around to your local businesses and say, I can paint your windows for you. And you're going to get 10 no's, but you're going to get 1 yes. And then after that 1 yes, another person is going to come by and see you painting those windows, and they're going to ask for their shop to be done. And it's just an explosion to where I wish somebody would have told me this in the beginning. Because it's such an easy way to make money around the holidays. I cannot overemphasize that enough. And those jobs lead to bigger ones, whether, the shop owner wants something painted for their kids for Christmas, or they want their kids' room painted, or they have a bigger mural space inside there. It gets the conversation started. It gets you networking, and doing holiday window painting is a really easy yes and a really easy in, because you can charge $100 to $500, anywhere in there. In
Right.
small town Missouri, that's about where I'm at, and depending on what the space, and you can get it done in a day, and it puts some money in your pockets for Christmas, and it just gets you started. And so that's my biggest tip for, I guess, around this time. And you can prepare for that right now by painting your own windows at your house. You using I use interior latex painting, so like the big gallons of just white latex, and I'll create a little snow scene in like September, and then I'll use those photos to put on my flyer to show people, hey, this is what I can do for you. And it's just easy money. So
Man, what a hustler mindset. I love that. That's great. So guys, that went really fast because I've been actually taking personal notes about our business this whole time. So much.
Wait, before you wrap it up, as we're talking about this is a perfect time to share about your academy. So when did you start doing that, and like where can people find it? And also, like, where do most of your students come from? Is it from Instagram or?
Yeah, most people will follow me on Instagram, so you just want to go to my Instagram, Art by Andrea. It's Art by Andrea Ehrhardt, but just my last name is super weird, so just go to Art by Andrea, you'll find me, and just follow me, and you can ask me questions if you have anything. I respond to all of my direct messages, which is, I'm sure, as you know, a lot of work. But yeah, and it's artistacademy.co, and to learn about other things, I have just wrote a book this past winter called Mural Money. So if you go to muralmoney.com, you can have the book. Yeah, I know, right? The Audible.
Oh, I wish I knew about that. I want to ask you about it.
Yeah. So muralmoney.com, the Audible version, it's a 15-hour Audible, so you can listen to it in chunks, but it's just a lot of everything I know about building an art business and through experience. And so I'm an open book, but I would love to help anybody help build their art business and think about their art in terms of marketing as well as having fun with it.
That's really cool. So the book, is basically talking about your journey, or it's the same as, like, similar to the academy?
It's both, basically. Yeah, it's like it talks about how I built my business from the beginning, and the steps I took in the beginning and stuff like in the middle and now in the end. And then the academy is more, it's just for people who want more, people who want videos. If you want me to show you how to paint a mural, you want me to show you, like, download a flyer to show you exactly how I'm going around and how the wording that I'm using to pitch all these places. So yeah, you can, if you want to start off with the book, and then if you need more help, go to the academy. But I am here to help because I know how hard it is in the beginning.
Did you self-publish? How did you learn how to do that?
Yeah, so Amazon, super easy. All you do is go to Amazon and they like walk you through it. And then I did the Audible as well, which was quite a bit, but now it's out there and it's done. And now I'm just promoting it. So yeah.
Wow, exciting.
Yeah,
man, cool. That's exciting. All while you're pregnant too.
Yeah.
Well, so that's actually a great segue into our Ask an Artist for the day. Somebody wanted to know specifically, how has pregnancy impacted your art business this far, and what things have you changed up, Andrea?
Yeah, so last summer and every summer prior, like I said, I'm such a hustler, so I would work in the summer, like so many hours, and just get the stuff done and make the majority of my money in the summer. That way I could kind of chill out in the winter. But this year I've just been very choosy on what I take, and just taking either the stuff that I really think is a lot of fun or the stuff that makes a lot of money. And so that's how I'm not hustling anymore. I'm probably painting 2 days a week nowadays. And then I do the Artist Academy stuff on Mondays, where I give them a new lesson and stuff for the podcast and all of that. So I may be working 3 days a week, which I've never done before in my life. And it's like, it's weird to step back a little bit and enjoy life, enjoy the summer, enjoy being pregnant, because I've had such a easy, like, pregnancy's easy for me. It's like, there's no sickness or anything. I've been very lucky. And so just enjoy being and this moment and to prepare for baby. Yeah, it's just a fun, exciting time.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. Felix, especially, I've been such a fan for so long, so I'm such a fangirl moment. But for both of you.
Man,
Thank you, Andrea. It was really nice to meet you and get to know you and your story, because it's very encouraging. I'm inspired, and you give me this energy of wanting to get to my studio right now. So how dare you? So thank you for that.
I'm glad. Thank you again.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I think like you know, it's so cool to see like that you're doing all this stuff. Even the podcast, I heard that you're doing podcasts too. That's awesome that you're you know, and we're kind of in a similar boat. We're trying things out, you know, and you know, trying to encourage others, because I think that's one of the things, the recurrent theme I notice with like interviewing artists is people that are successful are giving back and bringing a lot of value back to the people, you know, and you're doing that. So that's really, you know, it's hopefully the listeners see that it's not just focused around everything myself, or like focused on how I can get my art successful, but how can I also help others through my art, you know? And you've gave that message very clearly. So thank you.
Shucks. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think if you're down for it, you know, at some point we'd love to have you back, because I feel like there's so much more we could get to.
I know.
Yeah, for sure. Anything you guys want. If you want a guest teacher anytime and whatever kind of things you have, I'm totally open to collaborate anytime again. Thanks so much for this.
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks,
Man,
Andrea.
it's so nice to meet you, Andrea. Thank you so much for coming on. And thanks, guys, for listening. Be sure to give Andrea a follow. Check out her academy. Check out her work. She's doing so much. And be sure to share this episode if you guys enjoyed it. We hope to see you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
See you guys.
Bye.
Take care, Andrea. Have a good day.
Andrea.
You too. Bye.